Salutations, ladies and gentlemen, the Streaming Enderman here, back again with another video. And today's video, we'll be taking a break from Sheffield knives and taking a look at a knife from Zollingen, Germany. Now this is the Webermesser, also known as the Weaver's knife. I first found this knife on the channel Messer HQ. Very good channel, high quality videos, very quick, straight to the point, clear, concise videos. Very much enjoy that channel. Please go check out Messer HQ. Very much enjoyed video on this particular knife, and it's that video that got me looking at this knife, and I found it at Moonraker Knives UK, and that's where I bought it. So in the package you get your cleaning cloth, your little care and maintenance card, and I've always loved how Otter knives come wrapped in wax paper. I quite like wax paper. It seems to elevate the value for me of the knife. Very much enjoy how they package their knives. And here is the Webermesser. Now, as you can probably already tell, I have got a patina on this knife. And I did this via coffee. So I left the blade in a cup of black coffee, and then after a while I took it out, let it dry, and this is the result. Very nice patina, but in the meantime, let's take a look at the fit and finish of this knife and see if it's worth the buy. So, to start, we have polished steel bolsters. This is a brushed finish. I very much like brushed finishes. They don't take fingerprints, and thus they're very utilitarian, but at the same time they have their own sense of class. Stainless steel pins, stainless steel liners, stainless carbon steel spring. Carbon steel, yes. Otters, I believe, have carbon springs. Oh no, stainless steel spring, never mind. We have sapelli wood for the covers, and for those who do not know what sapelli wood is, like myself originally, sapelli wood is in the mahogany family. It's an African hardwood with a very unique grain pattern, and I think it looks quite nice. I expected it to be a bit drier out of the box, because all the pictures I've seen of this knife make it look rather dry. But it came out very nice and smooth, and after a few coats of oil, it really looks nice. Lovely grain pattern. Oop, don't want to drop the knife. I very much enjoy different types of wood. Wood's probably my favorite material for any knife. Always has been. Fit and finish-wise, transitions are buttery smooth. These are really good. You can't even tell there's a transition at all, really. On both sides. Very, very nice. The pins are incredibly flush. Can't even feel them. Seriously, this is probably some of the best quality I've seen on an Otter knife, and that says something. Comparing it to my 3-rivet knife here, this pin sticks up just a little bit, and you can feel it, unfortunately. This knife, you can't feel anything, which is really, really nice. Gapping-wise, there are some very tiny little gaps here. I actually don't think this is a gap right here. Don't know if you can see this, but the spring is just a little bit lower. And my camera's not focusing well today. It's just a little bit lower than the bolster. So I don't even think that's a gap. That is just the spring being just a tad bit below the bolsters and covers, and thus you can see that little, I guess it looks like a gap, but it's not. This is very well put together. It's just that the spring is just a bit low. Gapping back here, nope. Spring cutoff is a little messy. That could have been better. Blade centering is almost perfect, just a tad bit off to the right. The knife opens with a nail nick, but there is a lot of blade sticking out so you can pinch it. There's a very slight half stop here. It's not anywhere near as noticeable as, say, the half stop on the case Swayback Gent. This is a very noticeable half stop. You can feel it. This one, not as much. It's a little harder to tell there is a half stop here, but there is a half stop for those who appreciate that extra degree of safety. Solingen, Germany, has the Otter logo with the little otter catching his fish. And the knife has a very strong pull weight. It's probably the strongest Otter I have ever had, and I would argue this is one of the strongest pulls on any knife I have had. The only thing coming close and superseding this being the Arthur Wright & Son lamb foots, which are probably the strongest springs I've ever seen. But very, very strong pull. It kind of hurts your finger if you open it with the nail nick all the way. With this kind of knife, I'd recommend using the nail nick halfway and then just pinching it the rest of the way so you don't hurt your fingernail. Because it is a very strong spring, very snappy. Walk and talk on this is quite beautiful. Don't know if you can hear that, but that's a very... Well, glad my camera didn't fall off the table. But you can see very snappy action. Really enjoy a knife with a good spring. But yeah, all in all, I think that the spring on this is very strong. This is not the kind of knife where you'd worry about it closing on you. You have to put a lot of force on it to get it to close even halfway. And again, because of that half stop, it will prevent it from digging into your finger. So this is a very safe knife for a slip joint. I feel a lot safer using this than I would with, say, even this knife, which closes a bit easier because of its lack of a half stop, as well as the looser spring. It just feels a little less safe to use. This knife feels very secure, very good spring tension, and it takes a lot to get it to close. And even if it does close, it'll only close halfway. There's a stop pin in here, and as you can see, there's a bit of unsharpened tang here, and that will hit the back spring before the blade can. And as you can see, the blade does sit up quite high, so you don't have to worry about blade wrap with this knife, which in my mind is a very, very big plus. The blade steel is C75 carbon, so definitely not anything spectacular, but definitely not bad either. The blade spring is decent, but it could be a bit better. Come on, focus, there you go. I've seen much better blade to spring transition before, even on this case Swayback Gent. You can see that just looks much, much better when comparing the two. So that could have been done a little bit better if you ask me. As Case was able to do a better job when it comes to that. This is still one of my nicest case knives, even though it has terrible centering. That doesn't bother me too much because it has no gapping at all. The spring sits flush even in the half stop position. There's no blade play. And the transitions are really, really good. This is still one of my favorite knives. See, Case should do more knives like this. I want to see quality like this or better. Case can make GEC quality if they put their minds to it. Sadly, they just haven't in quite a while. But anyways, as for blade play, there is absolutely none here. This is an incredibly sturdy blade. Again, aside from the spring sitting a little low, there isn't any real gapping going on here. Very well put together. That cutoff could have been a bit better, though. That is one thing I will say. And the transitions, again, absolutely flawless. There is one flaw of this knife that is very, very, very sad. And that is the blade grind. Look at that. That is a very off blade. Now, normally when I complain about things like this, I think maybe it's just my eyes, maybe I'm crazy, but really, compare it to, again, the case. See, that's a perfectly straight blade. Then there's this. And there's that. You can see that blade is very much off, which is unfortunate because this knife is very close to perfect. Again, the transition between the blade and the spring doesn't bug me. You can't really feel it, so it's not a big issue. And the cutoff at the spring serves absolutely no purpose aside from cosmetic appeal. So really, the only issues with this knife are cosmetic, but that blade being offset, that is an issue, because when you're cutting something, you want your blade to be straight so you get a straight cut. How can you get a straight cut if your blade looks like that? You're going to be cutting sideways, and that's very unfortunate, because this knife was so close to perfect. When I got it out of the box for the first time and I felt those transitions, they were flawless, and I thought, wow, these transitions are amazing. I hope that the rest of the knife is this good. And then I saw that there was really no gapping issue. I thought, wow, again, this is looking very positive. And when I saw the overall grind of the knife, I thought, it's very even. This looks lovely. Blade centering is almost perfect. There's no blade wobble at all. The printing on the tang is good. I was about to declare this a GEC quality knife, because it was. This could have very well been a knife in a price range far below that of a GEC, but in quality very close to a GEC. And I was about to declare that until I saw that, and that just kind of made the idea of this knife being GEC quality fall apart, because that is a noticeable warp. Been noticing I've been getting a lot of warped blades recently. In the case of the Arthur Wright & Son stabilized spalted beech lamb foot, in a Taylor's Eyewitness basic lamb foot I had quite a while ago, that one was very warped. I've been just noticing that it's a bit of an issue now. I think that makers should be a bit more careful when they are assembling the knives to make sure that the blade isn't this warped, because I can't understand how that left the factory. My experience with Otter knives is still very good. The Little Doctor is a great little knife. The Mercator K55K is a timeless classic. The Dry Webermesser is a brilliant work knife. The fin is immaculate in every way. But this knife just, it kind of fell a little flat after seeing that warp. It just didn't feel as nice afterwards, which is unfortunate. I still like the knife. It's still very sharp, very user-friendly, very good size. I love the shape of this knife. But at the end of the day, that warp just kind of ruins it a little. So we'll do some size comparisons. Here it is next to the Dry Webermesser. Dry Webermesser has a blade length of over 3 inches, so not UK legal, unfortunately. But the Weaver's knife is UK legal, with a blade under 3 inches. Let's compare it to some other Swaybacks that I have. Here it is with the case Swayback Gent. So you can see it's a bit bigger and beefier than the Swayback Gent. Swayback Gent feels like a more detailed, precision cutting, light use knife, while the Weaver's knife feels more like a heavy duty slip joint. Here it is next to, oh, here's one, the Joseph Rogers and Sons Rosewood Wharncliffe pocket knife. Quite like this knife, even though it is very flawed too. So you can see the case is still the smallest of the three. Get that into frame a bit better. Here it is next to the Arthur Wright & Son Ettrick. Again, another one of my favorite knives, right up there with the case Swayback. So you can see it's beefier than the Ettrick, but the Ettrick is pretty much the exact same overall length. So, very comparable. Both have carbon blades, too. And finally, I'll compare it with my fanciest of Swaybacks, my recently repaired Michael May Bog Oak Wharncliffe jackknife. And you can see that this is the beefiest out of all of the Swaybacks I have. Comparing it to the Weaver's knife, you can see that the blade length on both knives are very close, with the Michael May being just a little bit longer. I also like the swedge that's on the May, which this knife just feels a lot more pointy. Well, this one just feels a bit more broad. Again, you got the difference between brass bolsters and steel. Brass pins versus steel, brass liners versus steel. But again, these two are hardly comparable. This is a no-nonsense sturdy work knife that costs less than $100. This is a custom handmade knife with decorative embellishments. So they aren't very comparable in that sense. But again, similar pattern, Wharncliffe Swaybacks with the nice handle that feels really good in the hand. That is one thing about this knife. It is very nice in the hand. This part is a bit thicker by the back, and it just fills the palm and feels very comfortable. Again, Wharncliffes are great for draw cuts and whittling, so you can get a lot of use out of them. But yeah, let me know in the comments what your favorite Swayback pattern would be out of all of these. Do you like the Joseph Rogers? You like the Webermesser, the Arthur Wright, the Case, or the Michael May? Let me know what your favorite is in the comments. Always happy to read them. And yeah, so my final thoughts on the Otter Weaver's knife. I think that for the price range, it's a good deal. Again, because I've had multiple other Otter knives and none of them have had this blade warp, I feel this was a one-off occurrence. And if that is a one-off occurrence, keep in mind, the fit and finish on this is near perfect. Again, transitions are perfect. Pins are flush. Grinding is really, really well done. The action is amazing. The centering is almost perfect, but I think that the reason it's not is because the blade is offset. But if it wasn't offset, the centering would be perfect. Not a knife that would get blade wrap at all. Beautiful walk and talk, good stamping. Just great work knife overall. The wood is lovely. The grain is lovely. Everything about this knife is just very well done. And the only thing that prevents it from being a 10 out of 10 gem is that blade warp. And if there wasn't blade warp, which I assume would happen on... I assume that knives with this issue are very rare, because I've never seen one with this type of warp. Again, on all my other Otter knives, they are very well done. They're very straight. This is the only one that just seemed a little off. But again, should you not buy this knife because this particular model had a warp? No, I think if you want this knife, go ahead and buy it. My experience was a one-off. I've seen other people do reviews on this knife. They have never had this issue. This is just something that happened once. So this does mean one thing, though. If any people at Webermesser, or anyone who knows or has contacts with Webermesser, please just keep in mind, and if you're going to bring any issues up, any quality issues, just it would be helpful if Otter double-checked their knives to make sure they didn't have a warp. Because, again, I'm still happy with this knife. I think that the quality is still outstanding, even though there is a warp. It would be nice if they checked their products a little bit better, because you don't want stuff like this leaving the factory. Because if you have knives like this leaving the factory and it becomes an ongoing occurrence, people are going to start doubting your overall quality and not wanting to support you. I'll still support Otter. I still think they're a great brand. I love their knives, but this was just that one kind of that lower quality one of the batch. But still, even though this is the low quality one, I still think it's a very well made knife. I think it feels great. I think it looks great, and everyday carry wise, it would be a great knife. It's legal in most places. It's a strong knife, good spring, good action, good feel, good blade shape, and the steel will take a very nice patina. Of course, this one was aided, but even a patina being done naturally without the use of, say, coffee or mustard or anything like that, they still will look very nice. So at the end of the day, if you want a good knife with this Swayback Wharncliffe shape, consider the Otter Weaver's knife. If you like the idea of a traditional handmade knife with a carbon steel blade and wood scales that isn't too expensive, well then head on over to Moonraker Knives UK, and you can pick one of these up. I think they're about 42 GBP. Don't know how much that would be in US dollars, but it was around 70 Canadian. And of course, if you don't like this particular model, because say you don't like the steel bolsters, then consider maybe the Joseph Rogers Wharncliffe, which they're a little harder to find because Joseph Rogers knives are seldom seen nowadays. And if you, say, want something that's a bit more, small and easy to carry, then consider the Case Swayback Gent. But I'd still say out of all of the Wharncliffe knives like this that I have, the number one that I would recommend would be the Wright Ettrick. I still have yet to find a better knife for the value, a better knife for the price that holds its value and holds its utility and holds its quality than this. This is still an absolutely amazing knife. And out of all these knives, I'd recommend this one the most because it's cheaper than the Case. It's not a custom knife that you have to wait as long for like the Michael May. It doesn't have a blade warp like the Webermesser, and the grinding is far better than the Joseph Rogers. So, again, I'm going to promote them because I really like their business. Head on over to the famous Sheffield shop if you want one of these. They are a great place with great customer service, and they do have a batch of these in stock in the rosewood material. So you'd be getting this knife in this handle material over here. This is the ebony version, but again, whatever material you like, go ahead and get one. You will not regret it. But, again, all of these knives are nice. I'm just saying that this is my favorite among them for value. But that doesn't take away from the fact that this knife from Otter is still a wonderful choice for an everyday carry. And I hope if you get one, you won't have the same issue as mine. But, again, it is what it is. I'm still happy with it. Thank you for sitting through my ramble. This was a bit of a ramble, getting off topic quite a bit, and talking about other knives and promoting other knives, but still, at the end of the day, this is a good knife. I think that for the price, it is still very well made, and if it wasn't for that one little flaw in mine, it would be perfect. So, keep that in mind. This has been the Webermesser Weaver's Knife, and this is the Streaming Enderman, as always, signing off. Goodbye.